Okay, so you have 3 different forms you can file your taxes with as your main form. You have the 1040EZ, 1040A, and 1040. 1040EZ and 1040A are short forms, and the 1040 is the long form. The difference is 1040EZ has specific requirements that only if you meet those can you use that. 1040A is a little bit more liberal, and then the 1040, anyone can use that. Okay, and these have limitations. All right, so before we start talking about tax forms, we need to talk about what's a dependent and what's an exemption. Okay, so dependents are people you support. Now, if I have some random person off the street living in my house and I'm supporting them, can I claim them on my taxes? No. They have to be a family member. So, or a spouse. Nope. Not unless you marry them. Well, there you go then. Okay. And then not every family member can be legally claimed. Maybe your cousin lives at your house, and maybe you do support them, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to claim them. And the tax laws change frequently, and I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not going to say whether you can or can't. You'd have to talk to like a tax professional to know that situation. But if they're not a family member, you for sure can. Okay. Exemptions lower your amount of taxable income.
So you can write off the tax exemption for like business stuff?
That would be a deduction.
Deduction?
Yeah. You get exemptions for people.
Oh.
And then that is an actual dollar amount. That like, okay, so let's say there's you have a spouse and 4 kids. You'd have 6 exemptions because there would be 6 of you. And then each exemption is worth a certain dollar amount. So if it was like 1,000, just to make it easier, it would be $6,000 that you would lower your income by.
Okay.
Okay.
And they can only tax that.
Right. Now, there are specific requirements to allow you to use the form 1040EZ. It's the simplest form to use, but not everybody's allowed to use it. You have to be either single or married filing jointly.
Married filing jointly.
Yeah. So married filing separately is not allowed. Head of household is not allowed. Okay. You cannot have any dependents. Okay. So you and your spouse are the only 2 dependents you're allowed to have on there. You can't have kids or anything else. Your income has to be less than $100,000. And your income can only come from certain sources.
So like certain jobs?
No. It can be wages, salary, and tips, unemployment, or taxable scholarships. So it can't be contract work, it can't be royalties, it can't be bank interest, it can't be stock dividends, you can't have business income.
So people that get signed for like to go work for a convention company that sets up a convention center.
Would not be able to use a yes. If they're not taking taxes out.
Yeah, because they don't.
Then yeah, you can't do the 1040EZ. And then your interest I said not interest, I meant not stock dividends. It can be bank interest, but it can't be, it has to be less than 1,500. Well, less than or equal to 1,500. So bank interest is okay, but stock dividends aren't. But your bank interest also has to be less than 1,500. But okay, so Elizabeth Allison is a food editor. She received a W-2 form from her employer and a 1099 from her bank. Okay, so we want to find out what is her taxable income for the year. Okay, so we take her 83,600 and we add 956 to it. And that gives us $84,556 is her taxable income. It's below 100,000. Also, her interest rate is below 1,500, or I mean not her rate, her interest earned is below 1,500, so we can use 1040 easy. Okay. So, what we'll do is we'll pull up our 1040 easy, and we'll start to fill this out. Okay, so we're not going to obviously fill out the whole thing because we have a made-up person. But you have to fill this part out completely when you're filing your taxes.
You want to fill it out while you do it?
Yeah. Is that better? Or is that too dark? Better? Or better?
I honestly don't know.
This one? Okay.
I'm still in the same way as his last name.
Huh?
This is last name. Like a little work.
That's her spouse. If you look, it says if a joint return, spouse's first name and initial, but she's not married, so you can leave that part blank. Your social security number has 9 digits. Okay, here's her address. Here's the city. This is her city, state, and zip. Okay, if you currently live in a foreign country, you have to fill out this part. Because if you earn money from like the United States, like your job is in the United States and you're a United States citizen, but you're like, say you're assigned overseas, so you're filing from overseas, that's when you'd fill that out. Okay, presidential election campaign. This is if you would like to donate $3 to the president to get elected or re-elected. So if you do, you check that. If not, you leave that blank. Okay, wages, salaries, and tips. That is box 1 of the Form W-2. Now, if you're filing paper taxes, you have to attach a copy of the W-2s to the paper taxes, like if you're mailing it in. If you're filing electronically, you don't have to do that. However, you have to keep a copy of everything for 7 years. Because at any time, they can come back and ask for your files for the last 7 years. So you want to keep copies of everything. Box 1 on the W-2, do I need to go back to it, or are you guys okay with? All right, hold on, I'll just go back. Right here, box 1. So we were at 83,600. Now, if there's change, you just round it off. Okay. Taxable interest. If you look right here, it says if the total is over 1,500, you cannot use 1040 easy. We're not. We had 956. Okay, so far we're good. Unemployment compensation, she didn't get that. We add this together, we already did that, and that is the adjusted gross income. Any questions so far? Okay. If someone can claim you or your spouse as a dependent, check the applicable boxes below and enter the amount from the worksheet on the back. Okay, so now if your parents can still claim you, you have to check you. And then there's a worksheet on the back here that you would work out. Does that apply to anyone? No? Okay. So we'll just skip to the, no one's claiming her. So she's single. So we're entering 9750. Okay. This is her exemption. So we're subtracting line 4 from line 5, and that gives us our taxable income. So, oops, I do 84556 minus 9750. Hold on. Okay, so 74806 is the taxable income. Okay. This is how much money she has to pay taxes on. All right, so we look at federal income tax withheld. That's from the W-2 and the 1099. Now, if you look, on the W-2 there's tax withheld, but on the 1099 there's not. So we don't have to add anything. We just look at her tax, which is $15,884. So we'll put that in here. Okay. Is that a little better? Which here? 15884. Okay. Earned income credit. Let me pause this for, whoa. I didn't even know I could do that. So she doesn't get earned income tax credit, so we're just going to put a 0 there. She does not have combat pay, so we're going to add lines 7 and 8A. This is how much tax she paid. And now we're going to find our tax. That means we're going to go to that tax table. And we're looking up this income, 74806. So if we go to the page that has 74,000, wrong page, 74,000. $806 is going to fall right here, right? And she's single, so she's got $14,736 that she owes in taxes. Okay. She paid $15,000. She only owes $14,000. That means she's going to get a refund. So if 9 is larger than 10, which is what it says right here, if 9 is larger than 10, you get a refund. If 10 is larger than 9, you owe money. So if we subtract this, this is her refund. Okay, so now, the rest of this information, if you want your refund direct deposited, you'd fill this out. Okay, if line 10 was larger than line 9, you'd put the total here instead of here, and this would be money you owed. And then you have to send like a check when you file your taxes. Or you have to file a form to make payment arrangements. There's different forms for that. You have to sign your return. You have to fill all of this out. And then if somebody prepared your taxes for you, like H&R Block or something, they have to fill this part out. But mostly they do electronic, so it isn't really paper. Okay. So if we go back to our, does she get a refund or owe the government money? Well, she got a refund, right? And her refund was $11.48. You use a 1040A if you have children, but you're not planning to itemize your deductions. So you don't have enough, like, itemization is a list of all your deductions, and you report that on various forms depending on what kind they are. But things that you would itemize would be like medical expenses, moving expenses, educator expenses, stock dividends. Well, those wouldn't be deductions, but farm worker stuff, like if you run a farm, there's deductions. If you run your own business, there's deductions. If you employ people in your household, there's deductions. There's all these different forms for all these different scenarios. If you're not doing any of that, you just use a 1040A. So it's not quite as simple as the 1040EZ, but it's more simple than the 1040. Okay, so if we look at this couple, Kenya and Robin, they have a child. Because they have a child, they cannot use the 1040EZ. So she's a pharmacist, he's a store manager, or vice versa. What do you think? Is Kenya the girl or Robin? Okay, she's a pharmacist, he's a store manager, and we have their W-2s, this one and then the next page. They have bank interest and stock dividends, but they don't have enough deductions to itemize. So they're going to use the 1040A. So that's what we're going to need to grab out now, is the 1040A. So go ahead and get your 1040A. So they're married. So one name would go up top, and another would go on the bottom. Social security numbers, last name. Okay, they don't want to contribute. All right, so they're filing jointly. Okay. Now, if you're married filing separately, you wouldn't put both names on here. You'd only put whoever's filing, and then you put your spouse and their social security number here. And then their form that they'd fill out would have your name and social security number here, and the IRS will check that those match. They'll check the two filings. Okay, so they have themselves, they have their spouse, and they have their kid. We don't know their name, so we're just saying Kid Omar. You have to have your child's social security number. You have to put their relationship, so son or daughter. If they're under 17, you check here. Now we have boxes checked on 6A and 6B. There's 2. Number of children that lived with us, 1. Kids that don't live with you or dependents not entered above. So your number of exemptions is 3. That's the total number of exemptions. This will come up again later. Okay. So now we have to add together their wages, salary, and tips. So if we go back, he had $65,120.97, or she, or he, and then she had $52,126.76. So we're going to add those two numbers together. So what's that? 65,120.97. Okay, and then you get, oh no, that's not right. I must have added it wrong last night. Hold on. Oh yeah, okay, so it's 11724773. Now we round though on the tax form, you don't do change. Yeah, it's a 7. Since we're going to be rounding, we put in 117248. Okay. All right. They had taxable interest. That was when you looked at the problem. It said it had bank interest of $987, and then tax exempt interest. We don't have any of that. Then you have ordinary dividends. Attached Schedule B if required. Okay. So the ordinary dividends were $1,200. Now, you only have to attach Schedule B if more than one source. Okay, because that's the worksheet where you added up all the dividends. But if there's only one source of dividends, you just write it in there. You don't have to add it on the form. Okay, Schedule B looks like this. And so see this line, you just list, if you had more than one source of dividends, you just list them all here and add them up, and then that total would go. So if you have more than one source of dividends or more than one source of interest, you fill out Schedule B. But if you only have one source, you just put it right there. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so capital gain, we don't have any of that. They haven't retired, so they don't have any pensions or IRAs to report. They didn't get any unemployment compensation, so we're going to add zeros to all of these. And we're adding up these three numbers to get our total income. Okay, so okay. So far, okay? Okay. Educator expenses is the next line. If you're a teacher, you're allowed to deduct so much money per year for classroom supplies that you've spent. If you've got IRA deductions, if you have student loan interest that you've paid, if you've paid tuition and fees. Okay, we're going to assume that there were none of these right now. Okay, so we're just going to say 0 for our adjustments. Your adjustments lower your taxable income. These are deductions. If we had any, we would subtract those two lines. Okay, so far okay? Now we're going to take this exact same number and we're going to write it up here. Oh, 435. Okay. Oh, I'm running out of time. All right. If you're before 1948, you check this off, you know, and then if you're married and filing separately, and you do all that, but we don't have that. Okay, so we're going to look at our standard deduction. If you come along the side here, this tells us our standard deduction. Married filing jointly. Okay. Subtract line 24 from line 22. So we're going to subtract these two lines here. And we're probably going to have to stop there for right now. Okay, and we'll finish that tomorrow.